Thank you again for joining us for the Weatherization and Energy Conservation Small Group. Again, I'm Johanna Newman. I'm the Senior Director of the Campaign for 100% Renewable Energy at Environment America. And I am thrilled that Joe Agan, a policy analyst from the Department of Energy's Office of Policy, is able to join us today. While we were working through some of the tech issues earlier, Joe and I agreed that we thought everybody should start in this small group because it's the most important one of the bunch. Because fundamentally, the cleanest energy is the energy that we never have to use in the first place. And weatherizing your home and finding ways to conserve energy is just a great way to save energy, lower your home heating bills, and make your home more comfortable and reduce pollution. And it's also critical that you take these sensible steps before you upgrade your heating system so that you're not spending money on a system that's bigger than what you actually need for your home's energy use. So I have a couple of slides prepared, but I really don't want to belabor the presentation because I think people probably have a lot of questions and we have an expert here. So let me move along. All right, so the way that I think it's helpful to think about this part of your home is two steps. So one is weatherizing your home, and the other is just taking steps to conserve energy. When you're weatherizing your home, it is definitely prudent to start with an energy audit. And if you're thinking, there's like the cheap version of an energy audit, and then there's the more sophisticated version where a certified technician will come to your house and put a blower door test together. That more comprehensive audit, even though it's a little bit more expensive, is going to give you a much better picture of your home's energy use and a better roadmap for weatherizing your home. So highly recommend that kind of sophisticated energy audit if you can make it happen. So first, start with an energy audit. Secondly, there's a lot of this that you can do yourself. So if you want to do it on kind of the cheap, you can find and seal air leaks yourself, and it can make a huge impact, and you can also insulate. And like Lisa said, because the tax credits for this are capped on an annual level, to really maximize the power of the tax credits, it is helpful to make a plan. All right, so that's basics of weatherization, and I'll share some resources later. Then in terms of conserving energy, some of the key steps you can take here are replacing inefficient appliances and inefficient lighting in your home. And then in general, new on the market electric technologies are much more efficient from an energy use standpoint than fossil fuel powered counterparts. So as you're thinking about conserving energy in your home, think about committing to electrifying something in your house. And that could be, if you have a gas-powered dryer now, switch to an electric dryer. If you have a gas stove now, switch to an induction stove. And the tax credits will help you do the wiring in your house to make those changes possible. Next, I want to share a chart that the Office of Policy has put together. I think this is the chart that Gina referenced in her overview that just breaks down what the different tax credits are for weatherization and conservation in your home so that you can use it to come up with your plan. And we'll put a link to that in the chat in just a minute. Okay. And then I will say that Environment America Research and Policy Center has also put together some resources to help break this down. So as part of our Clean Energy Home Toolkit, which I'll share with the larger group when we all come back together, we have a guide for how to weatherize your home. We have a recording of a webinar we did back in the fall when utility rates were skyrocketing all across the country and everyone was trying to figure out how to reduce energy use in their home. That offers some really good practical steps. And then we also have our Citizens Guide to Reducing Energy Waste, which basically takes a room-by-room approach to curbing energy use in your house. All right, and then this is, that slide did not present properly. It'll be better in the large group, but as we create resources to help people wrap their heads around how they can benefit from the tax credits, we'll be populating them into a clean energy home toolkit that's available on our website. And we'll share the link to that in the chat as well. So I'm going to stop. That's the end of my presentation.
John Agan is my name. I'm thrilled to be joining you from the Department of Energy and the Office of Policy. It's really exciting to be here and great to hear everything that Johanna had said to get us started. I mean, I think a couple of things I'd say briefly is first, don't feel like you have to do this alone. As mentioned, there are a lot of resources. You can talk to anyone you work with on your taxes, an accountant or your tax advisor, to get better understanding. And then also, if you have a trusted contractor who has helped you with working your home on your home in the past, that's a great resource. They will have a good idea of kind of what type of equipment qualifies, what activities qualify, and maybe can help you think about what your options are. We are really excited about the federal tax credits and how they can help supercharge energy efficiency and clean energy in homes. They're also not the only incentives out there. In many parts of the country, your local utility has incentives that can help you reduce the cost even further for the equipment and the measures that we're talking about. And so I will mention, this is not a DOE website, but EPA's Energy Star website has a rebate finder that I'm guessing maybe in some of the Environment America tools, where you can put in your zip code and it can help you locate and understand, what local incentives are available that might be able to be combined with these federal incentives to really help you save more. And then two other quick points. One of the things we're most excited about with the credits and the changes in the Inflation Reduction Act is that there's no longer a lifetime cap on how much you can take. And so if you want to take some of these steps this year, claim a credit for them in your taxes for 2023, and then are ready to, with your budget or planning in 2024 or 25, take additional steps, you're not up against a limited amount that IRS allows you, stops you from taking. So you'll see some limits in that table from our site that kind of limit in a single year how much you can take, but you can really build this out and kind of make a plan to continue to lower your home costs. I know it's probably hard to think about now in the middle of January, but Johanna mentioned thinking about electrifying something. And as we get into the spring and start thinking about cooling season and putting in either a new AC or replacing an air conditioning system in your home, I think something a lot of folks don't think about or realize is that a heat pump can be a great way to, using a heat pump for air conditioning and making that purchase as your AC breaks down is a way to, install a new electric, highly efficient tool for heating and cooling your home. So it will help keep you cool this summer, and then also can help offset any heating costs and heating emissions you have over the winter months. So even if you're not ripping something out, you can put something in that really can help create more, more of your energy use coming from clean resources. So those are just a couple of points I wanted to share. Johanna, happy to open it up to questions, and thanks again for allowing us to be here with you today.
And you can go ahead and unmute yourself and shoot.
Great, thanks. Two questions. Question number one is, when might we expect to see the instant rebates as opposed to the tax credits, which I understand are waiting on DOE regs and then State Energy Office regs? And that raises the question about whether people that do these projects you're talking about now, before those regs are established, not the tax credits, the instant rebates, whether people that do those projects now can take advantage somehow of the rebates, even though the contractors are telling me they don't know nothing about nothing yet about any of these instant rebates. So if I want to get a heat pump and I qualify for an instant rebate, they're saying, great, when there's some money available and somebody tells us how to do it, we can do it, but you got to pay the full amount now. So what's the scoop?
Sure. Yeah, and Bruce, I'll tell you, unfortunately, we don't have a complete answer for you, but I can share a little bit about it. And I appreciate the situation that you're in. One of the reasons we mentioned the rebate finder is that there may be great opportunities with your local utility to have an incentive, and those may be on different timelines. So they may be available now and funding may run out in the future. So I want you to consider that as well. But how you describe the rebate programs is spot on, right? DOE will make funding available to states. States will submit applications, and they will be running rebate programs in the way that they choose within the law that works best for their citizens. So DOE is still in process now. Just last week, we released a full request for information from states and stakeholders. Anyone on this call can visit the DOE website and contribute their thoughts on what should be included or how the rebate program guidance should be designed. But that's the place that we're in with this now. I know that the goal here is to move quickly, but also work with the states to make sure they have clear direction to do this right.
And what about retros? I mean, in other words, if somebody gets a heat pump now and in 3 months you put out the regs, the state does the regs, and it says the rebates would be available to that person. Can they get the retroactive rebate if it's the 23 expenditure?
We have frequently asked questions on our website now, and I'll follow up with Johanna on that. In short, I would say people should not be assuming that they'd be able to get a retroactive rebate.
I'll send you something in writing, but that would be bad.
All right, thank you for that. Thank you for that comment.
All right. Thanks, Bruce. Let's move on to Faye. And if you wouldn't mind saying what state you're joining from, that would be wonderful.
Oh, Massachusetts. I'm listening to this. Can you clarify for me, because I don't. It sounds like if you're not working, that you can still participate in the instant rebates sometime when this is all done, because I was listening to it, and I've been working to deal with climate change for 10 years. I gave up my car. I did some things that I could, but I'm not working anymore, and I really don't want to get another job. So so can you clarify? Can you clarify that for me? And the second thing is, I'd like to know about how you find other companies that do energy audits. I've tried the one that it's mandated in Massachusetts, and I really would like one with the infrared cameras and that kind of stuff. Thank you.
Two questions. One is around how do you find companies that can do sophisticated energy audits in Massachusetts? And then I couldn't quite understand your first question, Faye. It was around was it around income restrictions, or can you just rephrase it, or maybe, yeah.
Okay, well, I think the last person who spoke said that if you get instant rebates, then you don't have to be working. I'm 75 years old, and I do what I can, and I've been working to deal with this problem for over 10 years, and I've tried to do personally what I can, but it's limiting because I'm not working anymore, and I'm not so. So it sounds like the instant rebates are going to help the rest of us who are not working any longer. Is that correct? I mean, when they come through, it sounds like it's it hasn't been done yet. I just want
that's helpful clarification. So maybe, John, if you wouldn't mind just laying out the difference between the tax incentives that are handled through Treasury and the rebates, and how they're differentiated and the different mechanisms there.
Yeah, happy to do this. So to start off, I think you're absolutely right that the credits that are available right now are credits you can claim to reduce what you owe in taxes to the federal government. And so if you're in a situation where you don't owe taxes based on income and other factors, when you fill out your taxes every year, then they're not, it's not something that you get paid back in cash or anything like that. As you mentioned, once the rebates are available, the way they're designed and described in the law is that for each type of rebate, there is a higher amount available the lower income you report. And so that's based on area median income. So it varies a little bit by location in the country as well as household size. But in each case, if you're below 80% of area median income, you're eligible for a larger rebate than others in your community. And those are designed to be point of sale rebates, meaning they're a discount off the price that you would pay for any equipment. Is that helpful?
Yes, it is. Thank you very much. That's great.
And then the information about how to find qualified contractors. This is a question we get asked a lot because I do know, Massachusetts has a great energy efficiency program in Mass Save. It is run through the utilities, and the basic energy audit that they do doesn't include a blower door test. And so, John, do you have any resources that you can point people to on finding contractors who will do that kind of work? Or if not, I can try to do some sleuthing and get back to Faye.
Yeah, I'll name something, and Johanna, we can follow up so folks get this. But DOE maintains a website called energysaver.gov. And on there, there's information about a lot of energy efficient technologies, windows, doors, heat pumps, you name it. And there's some information on there specifically about both do-it-yourself options for kind of auditing your home and looking for places where you might be missing energy, as well as how to locate and think about finding a professional to do an audit for you. So I'm happy to follow up with that info.
Great. And I just put a link to the Energy Saver kind of interface in the chat. And I will say that when I was putting together the weatherization guide, this is definitely where I started. Department of Energy has put together really terrific resources here. All right. I see a question from Susan. So Susan, would you tell us what state you're joining from and then ask your question?
Yes. I'm joining from Ohio.
Great, welcome.
And my question is, do you know what is already okayed for 2022, which would be what we're filing now, and what is in the pipeline for 2023 and cannot be filed until 2024?
All right, John, detailed technical question.
Yeah. So I'll note that the table that Johanna mentioned that's on the DOE website now does lay this out. So for each type of technology, there's what's available for purchases that were made in 2022, meaning if you took that action in 2022, you can claim it on your filings that you're doing right now for the 2022 tax year. And then looking ahead, here's the addition in almost every case, here's the higher incentive for if you're making a purchase right now. That's what here's the higher amount and higher percentage that you'd be able to claim to get a credit when you're filing your 2023 tax year taxes in the spring of 2024.
On what website do I find that information again?
Sorry, I put it in the chat relatively early on. It's the very first thing in the chat where it says, here is the DOE chart of rebates.
Ah, that's rebates. That's not tax credits.
Oh,
or is it also?
That's my typo.
It is tax credits. The link that you put in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pardon.
No problem.
Okay. Great. Lynn, what state are you joining us from?
North Carolina.
Excellent. Tar Heel State. What's your question, Lynn?
So I'm in a family home. It's about 100 years old. And so, my granny's passed on, but it's got a furnace. It's got a gas water heater. It's got a gas stove, and it's something that my granny was always very proud of. And so I guess my question is, I might not be able to convince the whole family to just get rid of all of that. But if we start making some of those changes and say like the furnace still is connected, but we don't use it as much, so that we start relying on these things, but in case electricity goes out, we still have those backup things. Are all of the credits sort of like you have to get rid of the old stuff, or certain ones that you have to get rid of the old stuff? Because I heard you said that it will cover some of the transitioning, the wiring and stuff like that. What if there is no transitioning, it's just adding to?
While we have John, because he has to leave us in 5 minutes, I'm just going to use his expertise here. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Yeah. So for the credits, there's no requirement that you take anything out. For the rebates, and some of this will still be to be determined, but there are some limitations on certainly, for example, if you have an old heat pump in the house, you wouldn't qualify for a rebate for that. But it sounds like in your situation, if you're making a first-time purchase of a heat pump, for example, that wouldn't have any restriction on eligibility for either a tax credit or a rebate in the future. And again, that would be subject to what the state of North Carolina, chooses to do and prioritize with their rebate budget. But that's what's in the law.
And then just to define those specifics, those lines that you're talking about, where would we go if we were going to go purchase, or we want to, is there a specific resource online we'd go to check those exact sentences and those clauses?
I think when it comes to the specifics of your house, it's great to talk to the contractor who'd be installing it, and they can help you confirm, this is a piece of equipment that qualifies, right? In each case, you want to make sure it's meeting the level of efficiency that's required by the credit, but that is something that, the person installing the heat pump or the heat pump water heater would be able to, check and confirm for you that it's eligible. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. They're just not all that educated on energy efficient stuff here, but thank you.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of detail, and that's why we mentioned, having a tax professional help and a contractor who really understands the technology can really go a long way. Sorry, Joanna.
Well, I would love to share a little bit of my personal experience with this, because I have a 150-year-old farmhouse, and I've worked with my in-laws who also, are nostalgic about their home. And I think there are some just experiences that I can share about navigating that landscape and, taking small steps without leaping. Because some people can, it's a shift in how we produce and consume energy. And some of that's going to take time and, more of a wade in approach rather than a dive in approach. But given that we're losing John, I want to give Ralph a chance to ask his question, and then we'll see if there are other questions, but then I'll share some of those, waiting and experiences. Ralph.
Yep. Thank you very much. Just a comment and a question. The whole webinar was geared for tax credits, and I'm the third one that is under the income and needs the rebate. And the problem is the bill was sold as very helpful for low income people. And it's not working that way in real life. I'm in Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, I was told by the governor's office, I had to go through many calls to get someone who knew anything, that the actual weatherization money comes from the bipartisan infrastructure bill, not the IRA. And it goes through a community agency, whatever they're called, that your county sets up, and some have them and some don't. And ours has them, but they have a 2-year backlog. So I can't get anything done without weatherizing first, or a new roof, and they can help with that. But there's no information about it. And I think the problem is that everybody's geared to the tax credit people, because they use the most energy, have the biggest houses, and they're going to make the biggest impact. But it was sold to us, so we need help. And we need this thing to speed up, because we're the ones getting clobbered by the bills and are threatened to be out of our homes because we can't pay $750 a month for heat at 62 degrees. So I think the DEP or the EPA has got to get on this, because you sold a bill of goods. Yeah. We're not here so far to the lower income.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. John, I know you need to leave. Do you have any quick initial responses?
No, Ralph, I want you to know I hear you. This is something we have been dealing with. I think, we are aware that the bipartisan infrastructure law money for weatherization, was a huge investment and is limited in effect if folks are on waiting lists and can't take advantage of the program quickly enough. I have colleagues here who are working on that issue, and I will say, with the IRA programs, these are brand new programs, and so we are working very hard. I'm going to a meeting to help think about how best to get these programs set up and running and be as effective as possible, as quickly as possible,
Okay.
as we speak. And so continuing to hear from people like everyone on this call about what's needed and what's going to really make a difference is really valuable. So I'm sorry to hear that that's been your experience, and we will continue working to be better.
Thank you.
Yeah. And it's tricky, right? Because the policies, some of them flow to the states, and states are in different, have different levels of commitment to advancing climate and clean energy action. So that's where we find ourselves.
So Johanna, with that, I will excuse
Thank-
myself. I want to say thanks again and happy to follow up with more resources as questions arise. So thank you all.
Great. John, thank you for joining us. Good luck in your next meeting and thanks for your work. All right. Are there any other questions? Otherwise, I can, it looks like Barbara has a question. Great. Go ahead, Barbara.
Are there forms that we need to have for the rebates or the tax credits? Or is the contractor supposed to have the rebate forms, or how does that? Do you have to go to a contractor that knows about the rebates?
So again, I am not a tax consultant, but it is not on the contractor to broker this for the tax incentives. The rebates may be different. So I installed a mini split heat pump in our kitchen last year. That rebate, because it was a state level rebate, was handled through the contractor. For the tax credits, or whoever prepares your taxes will, you'll get asked the question, have you done any of these improvements? You'll provide the documentation that you have, and then that credit will appear. So that's how it's supposed to work. All right, I see Brian has a question. Go ahead, Brian. And if you can again say what state you're from, that would be great.
Okay, I'm from Pennsylvania. I just wanted to know if you saw the comment I left in the meeting chat.
I don't think I did. Let me take a look.
Is there any consideration for drain water heat exchangers?
Oh, yes.
I can hook you up, man.
This is a really cool technology. For folks, do you want to explain it briefly, or I can explain it briefly, but.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've had one installed in my house since 2005, so I've been after this. And for a while, I represented the product from a company that has since gone out of business because of lack of business in this country. So it basically takes heat from drain water, uses it to preheat the water going into the water heater. That way, you're spending less energy to heat water to begin with, and your heating equipment lasts longer because you're not hitting it with such cold water right off the bat. And you're recovering water that would normally be tossed straight down the drain. In the chat on the side, I did put a link to the DOE website page for it, but I still have access and information about these things, and I can hook people up. I mean, it'll take 25 to 30% off the top, and heating water is the second largest use of energy in a building. So, I mean, I started off with using 10 kilowatt hours a day for heating water, and I put this in and I was down to 6+ for the two of us. And then I put in a heat pump water heater last year. Now I'm spending about 1 kilowatt hour a day for hot water for the two of us.
Is that remarkable?
So that's pretty remarkable.
I always think about it like penguin feet. You know how penguin feet, the blood that goes down heats the blood that's coming up. Anyway.
Yeah.
As a way to keep the core temperature steady. That's great. Thanks for sharing that.
So, there's information, and contact me if you have questions or information you want.
Great. Thank you, Brian.